right, next level podcast listeners, we're back. And today joined by my friends Monica and Chris out of Houston. How are you guys doing today?
Great.
We're doing well.
Awesome. Well, I'm stoked we finally got the chance to do this. One of the reasons I told you about this podcast, what I love doing with this podcast is just kind of dissecting and learning from other agents around the country, what they're doing to run a big business, what they're doing that makes their business and lives fulfilled. And you guys are people that have become friends over the last year or so, and I've got to learn a little bit about your business and definitely admire it. So I thought it'd be cool to kind of chat a little bit about your story, because you guys have a unique one for sure, and just kind of share that with our listeners today.
Awesome.
So first, why don't we do this? Monica, tell us a little bit about the team. Like, give us the overall, what does 2019 look like for you? Both like production standpoint, but also like who's on the team besides the two of you guys, and what do you guys do?
So I can tell you who's on the team, but I honestly have not followed the production this year. It's been a whirlwind. So Chris is going to have to speak on that. But right now, our team consists of me as the team leader. And then we've got 4 buyer's agents or team members. We've got, 3 of them now licensed assistants, or 4?
3.
I don't even know. 3 licensed assistants and 2 unlicensed assistants. And those assistants wear different hats and do different things on the team.
Yeah, they have primary functions, like 3 of them are ISAs and 3 of them are transaction coordinators, but they also, we also self-direct them. So many of them do both roles as needed. So as the business changes or throughout the year, if I need more TC support, one of them can jump in over there. If we have, like next month with busy lead call month, I can shift one over there and take more lead calls. To answer Monica's question, production, we're about on track, the same as last year, maybe a little lower, but we're still looking at close to the 90 million mark.
Yeah, I like how you say that as if it's like no big deal or something to be ashamed about. Like, guys,
Still
90
like failure.
Yeah. That's obviously the achiever, the overachiever in both of you, right? And quite frankly, for a lot of us who listen, but I mean, the reality is that's a really big business. And I think the unique part of your story and your business, which I want to make sure we dive into today, is while you're in Houston now, you haven't, it's not like you've lived in Houston your whole life. You haven't been a Houston area realtor for the last 30 some odd years, like our buddy Jimmy. But you've built a really massive business in a relatively short period of time. Let's start with, like, when did you get into real estate originally, and tell me about that part, and then we'll talk about moving to Houston.
So I started in real estate in October of 2004 in the Dallas area. Originally, I didn't get into it to make a career of it. Chris and I, honestly, we were still dating. We talked about flipping, and that's why I got into it. And that never panned out. And so about 2.5 or 3 years in, he said, "Hey, I took a position with NASA and we're moving." And we had just been married for a year. And so I was like, okay. So here we are. He kind of had to jump in. I think he probably jumped in around 2009 to help me grow my business. I don't remember what the catalyst was for that. I know something had happened and Chris said, I'm going to start taking over and helping here. I just don't remember what that
think, if I remember correctly, she started over in 2008 and did no soul, which is a big deal. But I remember seeing like little small bills for Google pay-per-click. And I remember asking her, I was like, what are these bills? I mean, we're talking like, some were like $1.30. And
what?
so I was like, they were really low amounts. I remember that. And I'm like, what are you doing here? And she was running the own pay-per-click campaign. I said, okay, that's going to stop.
Go Monica.
Yeah, that's going to stop. I'm going to take that over. And so I took over the pay-per-click, and that was my primary role for, several years, until we decided that she got to a level in the business that she needed an assistant and we needed to hire agents. And when that kind of happened, I kind of took on more of a, managerial role maybe. I hate the word management. I like leadership much better. But, she couldn't do everything and manage all the agents. So I started doing that. And as it grew, I took on more and more of all of that, like signs, the marketing,
all the fun stuff, right? So hold on. I'd like to back up for a second, guys, because as if this is like a normal conversation in everyone's household. Hey, I took a job at NASA. So like first of all, okay, Chris, what is the deal there? So Monica's like selling homes, and you guys are talking about flipping homes, and then you take a job at NASA. That I'm guessing that doesn't happen every day. Tell me about, like, how long did you work in NASA, and when did you actually make the transition out into the real estate business with Monica?
It's a little bit of a tossy-turvy story because how it happened is I had worked for actually the Air Force in Cape Canaveral, which is NASA's the joint base. And I had friends there that I worked with, and we had all gone off onto private companies, the same ones, and one of them was in Dallas. And it was a startup, and one of my friends left earlier than me, and I stayed there longer than I should have. And it come around 2006, I think I went 7 months without a paycheck. So I was like, I've got to do something different. And my buddy had already moved from Florida to Houston to work for a NASA contract. So he just said, hey, I've got a NASA contract. It's a government contract. You know what that's like. I'm like, I don't care. I need something. And so I went down there for a year, actually, before we even moved. I drove back and forth every weekend to Dallas.
Whoa.
Just to make sure it was going to be real and a good fit. And so after the year, that's when I said, yeah, I'm kind of going to stay here. So I moved her down, and that's kind of how it played out, just because, I mean, not that it's a bad job, but just where my career was up there, as in no pay, and where her real estate career, she did pretty well, but it hadn't really taken off in south of
Dallas. I was only doing 26 deals a year.
It wasn't
anything exciting.
Yeah, it wasn't as a huge risk, and we weren't in the north part of Dallas where there's booming like crazy. So we just took a real chance coming down here and starting over. And I remember I had no clue. Even in 2010, when we had our first six-figure year, I had no idea that, we would even get to that. And then 8 years after we moved here, we became number one in the whole area here, Clear Lake, Greater Clear Lake, and Pearland. So, I look back and go, wow, I never would have even guessed that we would have gotten to that, especially in such a short time.
Yeah.
But I worked at NASA the whole time. I was doing both. And so after 11 years, I guess a year and a half ago, roughly, actually it's almost 2 years
ago.
Almost 2 years, I left NASA. Basically because I was doing contract work for the company, not cool government work anymore. And it just got to be too much having two laptops everywhere I went. So I just had to put the NASA government laptop away and just focus on our business here. And I'm glad we did, because, the switch to EXP took all my effort for 2 months. I don't know how I would have made that switch with another job. So that's how that happened.
When you guys have a business the size of yours, making a move of any magnitude like that is, that's a big undertaking. Monica, let me ask you this. So going into Houston, right? So a town that you didn't grow up in, and now here we are, fast forward, you guys have built this really amazing business. What was that like, starting over with no sphere? Was that scary at all? Like, how did you approach that?
So I moved here in August of 2007. My kids had to start school, so I finally moved here, and I took 6 months off. Like, I told myself, there's no way that I can work when I don't even know how to maneuver the streets. This GPS wasn't really a huge thing back then. You had the old map, and you're sitting here trying to figure out where you're going.
Key maps,
yeah. So I took those 6 months off and just said, okay, I'm going to learn everything I can about this area, the history of it, the streets, try to get lost and find my way back. And so that's kind of what that looked like is, I didn't officially start working here until the end of January 2008. And I had a decent year that year for someone who knew no one. I think I still closed 11 deals, which is not horrible. But it's just, again, my fear that first year was that people could see through the fact that I wasn't from the area. So I had to learn everything I could, just stupid, useless trivia about the area, so that if somebody asked me questions, I could answer them like I've been here all my life, when in fact I have not been. So that's kind of what that looked like.
Well,
for
and
me.
I think a key thing was too, back then, Google was still, that was it. It's kind of faded a lot from its prominence now. but back then, there was no Zillow app, and there really, I mean, it was there. Well, I don't even know if the app was there, but Zillow was pretty brand new. There was no mobile app, I don't think. So people were still going online looking for homes and looking for realtors. So because we came from Dallas, where we had to do everything ourselves because there was no public portal there like there is in Houston. So if people wanted to find a home, they had to go to Google, find an agent who had IDX, and stick with that person. So IDX was great for us early on. And when we came here, no one was doing that. No one had their own website. No one had IDX. In fact, I think the company we partnered with was only one of 4 companies who had any IDX with HAR at all.
Right.
And so we were running Google ads and running our web presence when no one else had one. And so at least until I'd say 2010, when they brought it up at the RE/MAX convention for everybody to see, they brought up Google, and we kept coming up all the time.
They had a class on running AdWords.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
It was in our area, so it was the state convention, and it was in Galveston, and they were showing people how to run ads. And here I am, I keep popping up, and I know this because I didn't go to that session, but people were like, "Hey, Monica, your name kept coming up on this Google class," and then all of a sudden everybody starts getting into pay-per-click.
Yeah, everyone started getting on Google. Fortunately, knowing what someone does and being able to implement it are 2 different things. But that's really how we kind of were able to. I think her production pretty much doubled every year for several years in a row, starting out, and it was a lot to do with I think the Google and web presence at that time. Like I said, it's not as important now as it used to be, but that was a big thing for us that
helped us get the position and gain the momentum that we needed. Because again, when you come into an area that you don't know anyone, how are you supposed to get business? You have to unfortunately go out and pay for it. So that's what we did.
It takes money. And I will say too, we were one of the first people to do the new review system that they have on HAR. So we got in at the very beginning of that. And reviews are so important. We have almost 850 of them here. We have more reviews than any other agent in all of the MLS of Houston, of 40,000 some odd agents.
I know the answer, but I'm going to ask this for our listeners. So HAR that's the name of your MLS.
HAR MLS, Houston Area Realtor MLS.
And so they actually have
MLSs around.
They have the best reputation, I can tell you that, because I hear nothing but good things about them. So there's an actual review system built into the MLS there?
Called the client experience rating. Yeah. And so every time you close out a transaction, if you choose to participate in the client experience rating, it will send an email to your clients, and whether they do the review or the survey or not, that's obviously up to them, but you can't pick and choose who you send it to. You have to send it, it's all or none. So,
and they have to be someone you closed, which is nice too. So you can't get your friends and family to do reviews for you at all. They did add Real Satisfied as another option, but they had no way to migrate the previous reviews. So there was no way we were going to switch to that because we have so many there. But that, when you get reviews, you have to exploit them as much as possible. So you put them on all your everything we did. We even have our review count on our signs. I take the stickers off as they change and put new stickers on the panels all the time as we go up, because everything we do, we talk about that review count, because that's what people, rankings are fine and volume is fine, even though that can be misleading, but people, they really resonate with the reviews and how many you have and what people say more than your rank number 1 or you did 90 million. So that's what we kind of choose to focus on, because we want to focus on more about what we can do for the client rather than look at me, look at what I've done, and the reviews are kind of, they're a little bit, look what I've done. But if you read them, it also shows what we've done for them, because these people are very appreciative of whatever deal that we had. Some have problems, some don't. So that's why I like focusing on that social proof aspect of it.
Yeah, well, it goes to show that you guys are caring for your consumer, and that's truthfully where that's, to me, that's what it's all about. We can talk about, we talk about rankings and we talk about volume and units and stuff, because that's how we think as business people. But truthfully, the one that counts is how does that consumer feel after they interact with us as a consumer. So let me ask you this today. So, how do you go from I won't say how, because you already talked about the Google pay-per-click, and then of course the rankings. What does the lead generation look like now it's much different when you're selling 11 or 22 houses a year to when now you're talking about doing 90+ million for a couple years now. What are the lead generation levers that you are focused on not just today in 2019 when we're recording this, but into 2020 and beyond?
I'm gonna let Chris speak to that.
Answer
That's his
that one.
wheelhouse.
Well, things have evolved, obviously. IDX we still have on the website, but it's not nearly as important as it once was. And we still do Google for sellers, and we get good results there from our seller ads, and they also exploit our reviews again. But because to date, there really still hasn't been a really good way to grab sellers. So they're still going on Google and searching for realtors and house value. Buyers, on the other hand, they're kind of dead on Google, really. You get a lot of clicks. You don't really get anybody registering, and they're not really that good. They're all going to HAR because HAR has its own app. They're going to Zillow or they're going to Realtor.com. So right now, we focus, and this will upset a lot of people, but we focus mostly on Zillow. Zillow has been our biggest lead generator. And as you may be aware, they've made a lot of changes in the last year with Best of Zillow and answering the phone call. So some of the automation that you and I talked about offline that you didn't see was in there to handle those Best of Zillow surveys and make sure the leads get to the right person. We have a lot of lead volume, but we only have a few people dealing with it. Most of what Zillow wants is you to have a really big team so they can make sure someone always gets the call, but it may not be the best agent to work that lead.
Right.
But they honestly don't really care. They just want to make sure someone answers. But we don't do that. We have our ISAs decide that. But we only have 3 of them, and they all work from home, and none of them have set schedules. So it's always just like at least 2 of the 3 on. And so we have a lot of systems in place to make sure that those calls get answered and those leads get assigned, and a lot of automation behind the scenes once leads do get assigned to make sure that Monica stays in front of them as the team leader, because that gets lost sometimes. They just associate with the buyer's agent and they forget who the team is. And also to make sure surveys are done, make sure there's accountability to the agents, make sure the clients are happy. She sends automated emails to check in with them regularly. So we just have a lot of things to keep that going, because the margins are very, very thin. And for a lot of people that want to get into Zillow, my only advice there is there's really only 2 things. If you don't go big, you can't win big. You can go small like a lot do, and they complain about, I have to spend $1,000, and you get your money back in 6 months. Ours is orders of magnitude higher than that, but we also generate more. But you've got to have the systems and processes and people in place. Otherwise, you might as well just be lighting that money on fire. Right. So that's kind of where we've been adjusting to that a lot. But we have taken this year in 2020, I think with, Monica's on the American Dream TV show that we're doing once a month. We're doing a lot of stuff with, I use the word celebrity. I don't really like that word, but basically trying to get it so that she becomes more of a household name than she is now. So, because a lot of people are chasing expireds and FSBOs, and everybody's fighting in the same pond. And if you can become well known enough, you can go above it, and you don't have to play in that game. So you don't have to chase expireds or FSBOs, because if they want to go that route, they go, oh, who's the lady on the billboard right down the street from me? Or who's the one I've seen on Facebook all the time, all their listings all the time. So we just kind of constantly hammer her same picture from 8 years ago or whatever, everywhere we go, everything we do, so that the consumer remembers her. So we're really trying to focus on brand awareness, a little more than lead generation, because lead generation is we tweak it, but it's kind of there running. So the brand awareness. Can you think of anything else? I mean, that's lead generation anyway. We have other things, obviously, but from a lead generation, I think that
covers most of it.
I mean, we do a little Realtor.com, but that platform's not as good. And
not for us.
We have about 33 different lead sources, but Google is still important, and then Realtor.com is important, and Zillow is the top, and our referrals are about 1/3. So those are important too. So we do a lot of things to nurture our past clients, just to keep them in front of them and hope that they come back. So a lot of stuff.
Yeah, that's a lot of moving parts. Monica, let me ask you this. So as your business has grown and evolved, what do you find yourself doing now? What would you say is your job today? And which I'm sure is much different than even 3 or 4 years ago, because your business has grown so big.
My primary focus right now, and it has been actually since I formed the team, is really working most of the listings. the year before I formed the team. So I think we formed the team in 2012?
Yeah.
In 2012, I had told myself if I got to 75 transactions that year that I really needed to bring on a buyer's agent. And so that year I hit 81, which really was an equal split of sellers and buyers. And if you think in terms of 40 buyers, that's a lot for one person.
Yeah.
And on top of working another 41 listings. So my focus when we brought on my daughter, Brittany, she was my first buyer's agent, really was to funnel some of those buyers to her. And then that way I could focus more on the listings because we knew the listing business was really starting to grow. And so since then, that's really my main focus. I work 99% of the listings for the team, and the team members or buyer's agents work 1% of the listings. And of course they do 99% of the buyers. So I've scaled back my buyer representation personally to probably no more than about 30 a year. And that's just kind of my going on 16 years, what I've earned. So
well, I would add her role. She forgets is she does a lot more helping now though, because a lot more questions are generated from the buyers on our own team, or even in our group, or our EXP group, down group. She is a broker, but not the broker, but she gets a lot of questions like she is the broker. So she spends a lot of time helping them as well. And that's part of what we took on. So I would say she has gone more into a leadership role. I mean, she still does the listings, obviously, but, we have listing coordinator help there. And, we have a bunch of other staff to do all the marketing and everything like that. So really she focuses on negotiation on those more than anything else. And then a leadership position because she's done so many deals. I would say there's almost very rarely does a situation come up that she has not run into. And so she can help them with those situations and tell them what they need to do, whether they're on our team or our downline, either way.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm not surprised to hear that too. Like you've built such a great community there, in your group. Your downline is one thing, but your team, as well as just what I've noticed, just the agents around you, period, in the city. It seems like you guys have built a great reputation, and I would agree, just from knowing you as little as I have over the last year. Reaching into more of a leadership role seems like something you've taken on for sure as your business continue to grow, which isn't always the easiest thing to do. You just said I'm not doing more than like maybe 30 buyers. Like I know people that can't do 30 buyers if their life depends on it in a year. I mean, much less all of the other listings that go along with it and all the other things you have your hands in.
Yeah, that's stepping down for her. She just, there's 30 buyers. Okay.
She just wanted to work like part-time or something, so only 30. That's awesome. Well, let me ask you guys this, because we're coming up on time. Like as we approach 2020, and I'm just going to call it like the future, right, of real estate. Things are changing in our industry. What are you most excited about going into 2020 and beyond?
Oh my gosh, I'll let you start that one because I don't know. It takes a lot to get me excited now. Isn't that horrible?
Well, I mean, I don't want to make this into like an EXP pitch, but we're very excited about the direction we're going with that, and how that is too. We have anxiety though. I mean, last year all the iBuyers showed up. Redfin increased their marketing ridiculous, so we've had to be dealing with them and competing with them. But I'm excited by that I'm seeing adjustments being made by not just what we do on our own team, and we have our own iBuyer in our group for that matter, but just what other brokerages are doing to counter those. And, that way there's enough food for everyone. And so I'm excited to see that those things are happening. Affiliated services are happening because let's face it, the margins are getting smaller. Commissions are being driven down. So the only way to really survive is to make a little bit on every part of the transaction as much as you can. And I'm excited to see where those opportunities are coming. A lot of them have come because of our own group, but other relationships we've formed too. So I'm excited for that. It's not the glory days, I don't think, but just it's changing so rapidly. So it's just we live in exciting times in real estate, that's for sure. I mean, you guys know you've been ground zero for iBuyers for years now. So it's an interesting time, and there's going to be some definite changes, but I'm excited about aligning us with people like yourselves and Fred and, and the Franklins and stuff to make it through and prosper.
The collaboration certainly for 2020 as our group grows. And of course we have you guys and the Franklin team. And so as our group grows, we collaborate with those agents and help them grow their business. And so that's the exciting part is, ultimately, do I want to step back even further from real estate? Absolutely. But that's a 10-year plan for me. And so for now, I do that leadership role for our downline, so to speak, and still help people sell. So, but I think the collaboration is the best aspect because we're growing so much. So
yeah, I mean, you've seen we've grown so fast in just, what has it been now, 10 months, 56 people in there. Hopefully the goal is not a 10-year plan, 5, maybe 5, where
I'll let you guys discuss that offline amongst yourselves to figure out what that actual number is.
But, hopefully where these other things are offsetting so that the team can prosper too, and she doesn't have to do everything. So I'm excited actually for that opportunity now, because we started that a year ago where we said, you know what, we can't just have her do 130 deals a year. It's too much for her. It's burnout. And we can give some of those to the agents. It's just with some of the lead gen, like I told you, the margins were so thin, we could never afford to do it. And now we're finally getting to a position where we have other alternatives so that she can step back and that business can now go to the team and we can grow the team that way. And so everybody wins in that scenario. So I'm excited about that opportunity.
Yeah, I'll tell you, you mentioned something there, Chris, that I wholeheartedly believe. And Fred and I spent a lot of our time talking about it and thinking about is, I think margins are just getting thinner and thinner. I don't believe we're ever going away as realtors, completely. But I do think we have to find different streams to keep our businesses and our income levels where we want them. And especially if we want them to continue to grow. And, it's forced us to do different things too. I mean, gosh, we spent the last 5-6 years avoiding buying property because we were just so focused on building the team. And now we're focused on, okay, no, we need to go buy flips and rentals going into 2020. Like that is a big part of our business plan too. And I'm just using that as one example because I've got to have these other income streams to keep my business growing and to be able to match my goals. Right. And I love that you guys are talking like that as well. And all this disruption stuff doesn't mean that we can't reach our goals. It means we just have to think about it differently.
Exactly. I mean, we did the same thing with our iBuyer. We're doing deals with him. I mean, I'm probably not going to go out and flip, but because he's got all the crew, but we can work with him and everybody can win in that scenario. Rentals is another one. Vacation rentals are big for us here that we want to get into and do just to have other things. And then without getting in any detail, the automation that we did is also so we don't have to have a big team and we can keep the staff small and keep an A team. It's hard to find a big team of really good people. And then you have to keep a certain level going to keep them all employed. Whereas if I can automate some of those, I can have a smaller type team that can survive better if things do get tough. So I'm excited about that as well, as you know from our discussions. So lots of things going on. Lots of things.
Well, that's awesome. So any last parting shots, anything that we should make sure we talk about before we wrap up today?
Flip-flops? Do you want to talk about flip-flops? Oh, no, we don't talk about flip-flops. We love flip-flops here all year round. Just going to tell you that. I wear them all year round.
Are you still wearing your shoes? That's what I want to know. Are you wearing real shoes still?
I'm so ashamed to admit it. I am. I'll make sure I'm back in flip-flops by the time we come out to Houston in February, or maybe it's March. I'll make sure that my feet will not be covered. Like I refuse to do this for too long. I can't act like an adult for this long. It's really, really cramping my style.
Yeah, it's not fun. Only parting word I can think of just for the people listening out there, everybody is different. Everybody's market is different. We know people that in like Scottsdale who do advertising in the newspaper because of the demographic there. We do a certain kind of marketing here. We don't do certain things like Chase Bizbos and expireds. Everybody's different. So I guess not so much maybe find your niche, but find what works for your area and also play to your strengths. We did things because of my background that we were able to do that others couldn't do. So that's what you have to do as a realtor is that what am I good at? What can I leverage? Maybe I'm very creative. Maybe I can do photography on my own and you can save money there, whatever it might be. Video production, that's another big one that people can do that can really prosper. So that's just what you have to do and find out what it is that you can leverage to make you successful that others really can't do easily. If you've got money, that's even better because money is the big discriminator there.
Yeah.
It can overcome a lot if you got it to spend. So if you're starting out in a new city, you're probably going to have to spend money to boost yourself up because that's what we had to do. And,
Absolutely.
Fortunately, we had my NASA job at the time that allowed us to do that. Not everybody has that. So, but everybody's different. So.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, you just reminded me of a quote there's an entrepreneurial coach, Dan Sullivan, who says, if you have a problem and you have enough money to solve the problem, then you don't have a problem. Right?
Exactly right.
Write the check, solve the problem, and move on and keep building the business. So
yeah, that's not a problem. That's just a daily activity.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Well, Monica, Chris, thank you guys so much for your time. I really appreciate it today. Where's the best place for our listeners to catch up with you on, whether that be social media or a website or anything like that? If someone wanted to reach out to you, maybe even for a referral in Houston, what would be the best way for people to reach you?
Probably just visit our website, which is realtybymonica.com.
And if you are on Facebook, it's the Monica Foster Team Homes and Lifestyles. Actually, no, the Monica Foster Team Homes and Lifestyles is our page. You can reach us through that too. But the website has everything you need. So that's the easiest way.
Awesome. Well, we'll make sure we link that in the show notes. Guys, thank you so much for your time today. If I don't talk to you before, then have an amazing Christmas and New Year. And we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks,
you too.
Kevin.
All right, guys. Bye-bye.
All right,
Bye.
bye.